Greetings! I've got to stop doing that. Okay, welcome back to, look at that, Hegel on the beach. Look at that beach. Um, I'm going to spoil all that because I'm going to talk about the actualization of rational self-consciousness through itself. So we've reached halfway, roughly, to the series, and we're up to volume 2, if you want to look at Harris, of Hegel's ladder, and it starts at this point. So I'm considering that's halfway. By the way, last week, or the week before, when I was talking about nature, and when I was talking about, Victor and Diego Rivera, and how uh, they put humanity at the center of the universe, and this difficult relationship with nature. I just want to add one little bit, which is that there's a documentary called Grizzly Man, and even though look at this, being with nature is wonderful. In Grizzly Man, it's about this really nice guy, and he went to Alaska to film and play with some grizzly bears, and he got eaten. And what's his name said, the documentary maker said, the thing is, he goes, he looked nature in the eye, and he thought it was food. So that is why I suppose this idea of humanity being central, and you know me setting up a tripod to look at that view particularly. That's why, there is this, I don't think it's ever going to be solved, this relationship between humanity and between nature. Anyway, Grizzly Man, if you're interested. So Harris says this, he says, we are now observing the rationally cultivated self as it finds itself in our modern world. So Hegel has made us cognizant that self-conscious awareness is social at this point, okay? So it's not a little man in your head. Reason is the consciousness that everyone recognizes my rational freedom. So I can't be this singular self, but I've got to be part of a community of selves. Okay. Hegel calls that, just that butterfly flying past. Look at that, nature. Hegel calls that community of selves spirit. But at this point in the book, reason doesn't know it, doesn't recognize spirit as spirit. So the rational self expresses itself in the world of human action. It isn't an island of isolated thought. My recognition is shared with every other rational agent, and our scientific discoveries achieve the status of knowledge only when they're published and shared with a community of other interested individuals, scientific observers, however you want to call it. And a rational observer can't exist in seclusion and inaccessibility. Scientific discovery is pointless until it's shared and it's checked out whether it's or it's. Reason belongs to everyone, so there has to be socially recognized ways of giving and receiving recognition for the rational discovery. So we've got communities of scientists with common values, and I mentioned previously things like peer review and the like. And we've also got a state that stands above society, making sure these rules are fair and intervene if someone rips somebody's idea off and so on. So the state's important. Paragraph 350 in phenomenology, okay? Oh, the sun's come out just as a... So it is in fact in the life of a people or nation that the notion of self-conscious reason's actualization, of beholding in the independence of the other, complete unity with it, or having for my object the free thinghood of an other which confronts me and is the negative of myself, as my own being for myself, that the notion has its complete reality. Reason is present here as the fluid universal, which yet bursts asunder into many completely independent beings, just as light bursts asunder into stars as countless self-luminous points. So I just wanted to read that because it's a rather nice description of the relationship between the state and this luminescent multitude, which is all of us. Okay, so paragraph 352. So this is where he starts talking about the nation, the state, and stuff like that. So in a free nation, therefore, reason is in truth realized. So it is a present living spirit in which the individual not only finds his essential character, i.e. his universal and particular nature, expressed and present to him in the form of the thinghood, but is himself this essence and also has realized that essential character. The wisest men of antiquity have therefore declared that wisdom and virtue consist in living in accordance with the customs of one nation. Okay, so Hegel's writing basically Prussian absolutism at that time. It's still, you know, and that just can't be right, can it? You can't have that nation was like, who would like to live at 1800 in somewhere in Germany? It's probably going to be a nightmare. Just you couldn't say anything. But anyway, nevertheless, that's his view on the nation. So any act of self-conscious anywhere is already an act that affects another. It is already societal. So, for example, if I walk to, this is why the state's important in one sense, because if I walk to work, that's literally an act for another. I'm walking to my place of employment where I'll work according to the norms of the institution I work for. And even the act of walking means I'll have to follow customs or societal conventions that stop me barging people out of the way when I walk. So, when I walk around the top of Watts Lane, what do I see? Unfortunately, people don't follow those societal norms. So you find there's about 50 cyclists on the pedestrian walkway. So there's no, well, there is a kind of law, but it's kind of, that's what, come on, guys. Cyclists, motorists, whoever you are, it's follow the norms, be polite. Okay, 419B, I'm skipping a few paragraphs here. Okay, so this is maybe of more interest. So, reason as lawgiver. Do moral laws have the same status as mathematical laws? Okay. So, 424. Everyone ought to speak the truth. This is Hegel speaking now. In this duty, as expressed unconditionally, the condition will at once be admitted if he knows the truth. The commandment then will now run, everyone ought to speak the truth at all times, according to his knowledge and conviction. Sound reason, which knows immediately what is right and good, will also explain that this condition was already so much part and parcel of that universal maxim that this is how it meant that commandment to be understood. But with this admission, it in fact admits that already in the very act of saying the commandment, it really violates it. It said everyone ought to speak the truth, but it meant he ought to speak it according to his knowledge and in conviction. That is to say, what is said was different from what it meant. And to speak otherwise than one means not speaking the truth. So here, Hegel's going to be talking about moral universals, like, you've got to tell the truth all the time. Another celebrated commandment, 45, is love thy neighbour as thyself. It is directed to the individual in his relationship with other individuals and asserts the commandment as a relationship between two individuals. For this purpose, I have to distinguish what is bad for him and what is appropriate good counter to this evil, and what in general is good for him. That is, I must love him intelligently. Unintelligent love will perhaps do him more harm than hatred. Intelligent, substantial beneficence is, however, in its richest and most important form, the intelligent, universal action of the state, an action compared with which the action of a single individual as an individual is so insignificant that it's hardly worth talking about. The action of the state is, moreover, of so great a power that if the action of the individual were to oppose it, such an action would be altogether useless and inevitably frustrated. Okay, Hegel, long quote there. Hegel's here saying the state can legislate to stop morons harming themselves, like the COVID idiots. Remember that? And there are still people floating around who no, it's all a conspiracy and I know what's best for myself and so on. But Hegel's also saying that even with the clearest of examples, for example, love thy neighbor, even that isn't completely universalizable. Universalizable, is that the way? Universalizable can be universalized. Let me put it like that. So even, tell the truth, love thy neighbor, those kind of things, which seem just so obvious. There's always a problem when you get down to the concrete, when you bring it from on high down to below. So this is where I think he's sort of talking about Kant's categorical imperative. And it says this. So basically, he says, act as you would want all of the people to act towards you. Act in accordance to the maxim that you would wish all of the rational people to follow, as if it were a universal law, which is a fair statement, isn't it? So, don't do stupid things like drive on the wrong side of the road or murder people, because you wouldn't want that to happen to you, would you? So that's a pretty straightforward thing, that this categorical imperative. But the problem is applying this universal law, and that's what Hegel is getting at. Okay, almost any universal truth can't be separated from the real world application of those truths. We can have the most profound and sacred moral principles, but it's meaningless unless you know how to apply them. So, speak the truth at all times. Example: darling, do I look nice in this dress? No, dear, you look absolutely terrible. And I've got to speak to the truth to you, even if it hurts you, because that's what Kant said in the categorical imperative. Okay, speak the truth all the time. Okay, so universal truth. Oh, I mean, that's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, you're clearly not going to, if someone says you look nice in this dress, you're not going to go, no, you look crap. So, um, universal truth, it's only got meaning and reality when we connect it to real circumstances, to real people. So remember the first video of the series where I said that Hegel chose love over law when he wrote that work on early Christianity. Okay, this is him restating it in this book. Only material cases in the real world can reveal the truth. All moral norms have to refer to definite cases. Okay, we all want to believe that something can only be true if it's true forever, don't we? You know what I mean? The idea of, Oscar Wilde said, what is it? A thing of beauty is a joy forever. I mean, that's just, for the fairies and that. But even the laws of physics may not be a joy forever. It might very well be the case, I read, me with my pop physics. It might be the case that actually the laws of physics aren't eternal after all. Apparently, the laws of physics were something completely different, significantly different from what we know today. And for some time, ages and ages after the Big Bang, so you had the Big Bang, laws of physics. No, there was some other weird stuff going around like that. Protons didn't exist and things were going in the wrong direction. And I don't know whether there was a speed of light or not. But anyway, the laws of physics were, and then the universe cooled down, and then the laws of physics came into. So even the laws of physics, right, are not eternal. So why do we want our morality set in stone? So, until death us do part. Why do we want that? So if moral universals don't really exist, then does that mean we can just drop them whenever it's convenient? So let's depart. Well, do you know what? I'm bored with you now, so I'm going to leave you. See you later. Bye. Okay. So why get married when you can drop your partner as soon as Jennifer Lopez or Bradley Cooper or whoever else is free? Why? Um, you know, Come on, Don. We all know that there are no such things as moral universals. Grow up. I mean, who's ever going to say that? I mean, it's quite. We do sort of still believe in these moral universals, don't we? So, and why would ditching our partners for someone else when convenient not be such a good course of action? Why is lying routinely seen as bad? I think it's because moral universals, they're better understood as the common experience of society and history. That, the common sense in the best sense of that phrase, they remind us of things that we simply need to be aware of when we go through our daily lives as beings in time. You know what I mean? You're little and you grow up, and then people tell you stuff when you're little and you go, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then when you get older, you go, oh, my God, why didn't I listen to me dad or me mom or me big brother or whoever? I should have followed that advice. You ought to be friends. Okay. So we need to be aware of these things in the normal course of events. So I'll give you an example. Okay, at the end of the film Casablanca, Ingrid Bergman throws herself at Humphrey Bogart. She's prepared to leave her husband and go with him. She's throwing out the moral universal. But in the act of apparent supreme self-sacrifice and gold standard moral universalism, Bogart turns her down and tells her to stick with Mr. Boredom, Victor Laszlo. So, I mean, he's great in political meetings, isn't he, Victor Laszlo? Oh, get up there, la la, la la la. He starts singing the French national anthem and everyone loves him. But You know, uh, imagine living with them. Imagine living with someone like that. You'd want to like, you want to blow your brains out when you're living with Victor Laszlo. But anyway, um, the reason why Bogart turns it down is because he knows that he can never be happy if Laszlo is destroyed. Bogart seems to be acting on the universal law, don't steal Laszlo's wife, but in fact, his morality is very reasonable and concrete and down to earth. Bogart explains his reason. Are you ready for it? This is what he says. This is why he's doing it. Inside of us, we both know you belong to Victor. This is a terrible accent, isn't it? Should do it in Welsh, right? Okay. I'm trying to think of an accent to do Humphrey Bogart in the film. Oh, inside of us, we both. Oh, this like sounds like I'm from the Indian subcontinent. Okay, I'll try and. I want to put a Hollywood accent. Inside of us, we both know you belong with Victor. You're part of his work, the thing that keeps him going. If that plane leaves the ground and you're not with him, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon, and for the rest of your life. Oh. Okay, so universals emerge and are generalizations of practical problems we fallible human beings encounter every day. So it's a practical thing that why he sticks it on the plane, because he knows they'd be miserable together. Um, okay, so the same applies to scientific laws. Humphrey Bogart and science, they go together. As I said earlier, even the eternal laws of physics have changed over time. And yes, for our daily practical purposes, the laws of physics are universal and are forever. Because who the hell wants to be bothered with exceptions that happened like 3 billion years ago? I mean, it's not practical, is it, to believe in the changing laws unless you're a physicist. Okay, and that's why when we see people peddling moral absolutes, such as the far right Republicans, we know they're talking garbage. Moral absolutes, though, are not the property of the far right. And that's why, again, it's some of the left. This is where it really annoys me because, Trump's going to come up with, all the far right in America and Britain, they're going to come up with rubbish, aren't they? So I know they're lying and I know they're false, but it's when the left, that's when it's more dangerous, I think, for people who want to move society forward. Okay, so take Stop the War Coalition. Supposedly, they are for unconditional peace. So there's this fella who they have on all the time. He's the token Ukrainian in the Stop the War movement, and his name is Yuri Shelyazhenko, and he's always on their platforms, and he tells us that because war is so bad, because it's a universal truth that war is bad and peace is good, Putin and Zelensky are both the same because neither of them subscribe to universal peace. They are both enemies of peace. So therefore, if they're both enemies of peace and there's always a better way to do it, maybe negotiate. We know, okay, this is rubbish, isn't it? But this is what he's saying. He's saying he believes in universal peace, and anyone who's opposed to it is just as bad. Hitler and the Warsaw Ghetto, it doesn't make any difference. They're all the same because these should have negotiated. Okay. So killing is always wrong, isn't it? Of course. Except, of course, if someone has got a gun to a child's head, or if someone's about to fire a missile that's going to land on a block of flats in Kharkiv and is going to kill 300 people. In which case, you've got to stop the person doing it. You've got to stop someone killing a child. You've got to stop someone blowing up a block of flats. And if you don't do it, and you can do it, then this moral virtue, this absolute, just turns to dust, doesn't it? It's nothing. So moral absolutists, they're kind of like, I've mentioned this before, modern day Platonists. And I think more than that, it's okay me plucking out Plato and having a go at Plato, but in reality, they're happy to see civilians die because it makes them feel better about themselves. What I mean is, they don't want to take sides because they want to be pure. They want the moral absolute. No, I'm not going to. No, I could help. I could make a donation for weapons to stop people being murdered, but I'm not going to because look at me. So I think it's about them making themselves feel good. So in the case of Yuri, as I said, he likes playing the role of man of peace. Makes him feel good, you know. And in the case, but a more sinister example, I mean, okay, he just loves it. He loves being, people will watch him. Maybe a few thousand people will watch the video, in a small world of like the extreme peaceniks who are, Putin apologists, really. But anyway, fine if you want to say stuff like that. But okay, that's one thing. But in another case, it's more disturbing. So we've got Stop the War spokesman Andrew Murray. From an aristocratic background. I've mentioned this before, private school and stuff like that. And of course, hardline communist, yeah. So it's completely different with him because he is a full-blooded, full-throated communist who believes in the revolutionary overthrow of society, of the state, sorry, the revolutionary overthrow of the state, accompanied by violence if necessary, yeah. So when he states that he supports universal peace, and he has people like Yuri on his platform, and when he talks about peace in the abstract, we know it's just a smokescreen for his real political views. He supports peace when it's convenient and carried out by people under one flag, but when it's not convenient, or rather when it's carried out by people with the red flag, oh no, but we can't have peace then because it's the red flag, so they can do whatever they want. You want 20 million people? No, well, it's the red flag. Don't you get it? It's whenever it's convenient, so that's why that's duplicitous. And I think what undermines the argument is that he won't come out openly and just say, look, you know what, I don't really believe this fella Yuri Shelyashenko. I think he's talking crap. And if he was talking about it in maybe peace in Palestine, I'd oppose him. I'd oppose him if he was in saying, oh, wait a minute, I think the Palestinians and the Israelis are just as bad as each other. He wouldn't do that, would he? Okay, so I think also this is about lying your way to power. And this is not a universal thing. I'm not saying the universe, but the actual thing, the actual process of lying does something to you. So people in general know when people are lying to cover their real intentions. And in politics, lying like Boris Johnson, I mean, it makes you popular, but who wants to go down that road? Who wants to go down the road of lying to get yourself into power? So there's a lesson in there for left organizations who think calling for peace and war at the same time and hoping that nobody notices is a really good thing. So I want to give you an example. I was reading about Roman Malinovsky. So he was the leader of the Bolsheviks in the Russian parliament, and he turned out to be a double agent. Now, everyone told Lenin that he was a double agent. The Mensheviks, independent social democrats, even Bolsheviks. Like Bukharin said, why is it that yesterday everyone got arrested and Malinovsky got off? And then someone would say to him, look, all these people have been sent to Siberia and the strike's being broken, but Malinovsky's getting away. How does he do it? Now, Lenin defended him in the teeth of overwhelming evidence because he was useful to the Bolsheviks. So he knew he was an agent. He knew it, but because it suited him, because I don't know why. Was it because he wanted to put distance between himself and the Mensheviks, and Malinovsky was a very pro-Bolshevik and anti-Menshevik character? I don't know. But he knew that he was lying. How on earth can defending someone who sent loads of his comrades to Siberia, how on earth can you justify that? But no, that's what if you follow the logic of sort of the hard Stalinist thing, and even some Trotskyists who've got this view of you Lenin and all this, who turn him into it's rubbish. It was a terrible decision to make. Lenin also, by the way, he knew that Stalin was a murderer and a liar, but he too was useful to the party. What it means, it was just convenient for that particular moment. And it was, so I know he's deported, 50,000 people from the Caucasus, but listen, he gets things done. So we've got, on the one hand, we've got moral universals. On the other hand, you've got sort of, I'll lie when convenient. So what we've got to do is look at the concrete cases and see, well, why does that not work? Okay. So, if you allow aggressive, lying, murdering bullies free reign in a party or a state, you store up bigger problems for your political vision. You turn your party into a bully's playground. And also, you realize that truth is a lie whenever it's convenient, whenever it suits my immediate needs. And that's why, out of the Soviet Union, if you look at what's happened now, where people don't know. Roman Malinowski went back to the Soviet Union, and he said, "Look, I'm sorry, I did this thing." Now, apparently, he was in Lenin's good books, but he went back and he ended up getting executed the day after he went back. So something weird was going on with Roman Malinowski, clearly, and the Bolsheviks and the inner circles, where and I think that carried over, didn't it? So you see it today in Russia, where people just tell lies all the time. So Stalin was the expert liar. He would accuse people of doing stuff when he'd done it. So even from his earliest days when he was in Georgia, he would say, that man is a police spy. And he would accuse the person who of being a spy when he was the spy. He was the person who'd blown up strikers to the police. He was the one who was responsible for it. But that set the tone of accuse other people of lying very, very quickly so you can get away with it and be convincing when you do it. So that led to the whole history of the Soviet Union, the lies, the purges, the trials. It was already baked into the cake. And if you look at Russia now, the mountain of lies, you're never going to know the truth while that state is still in existence, unless there's a revolutionary overthrow and Putin is deposed and so on. Anyway, so getting things done, relying on people who get things done, even though they're liars, is a bad policy. You'd store the problems for yourself. So that is, I don't think that's a universal moral maxim. That's the political experience of the last 100 years. But because many people, I think, are looking for this, they want the reassurance of, a socialist utopia. So if you can get there by lying, well, why not? But you can never get there by lying, can you? That's the thing. And that's not a moral universal maximum. Yeah, you might have to sort of, if someone says to you, where have you been all night? Oh, I've been, I'm not saying people are necessarily going to tell the truth 100% of the time. But over the big stuff, over big political stuff, if you're lying regularly as a matter of state policy, then, come on, you just can't justify that. And it is, frankly, all of the left have turned a blind eye to that. Okay, the purges in 1936, the left didn't really they said, oh, these are monstrous frame-ups. But where did it come from? Stalin just didn't wake up in 36 and say, by the way, we're going to tell lies. This, as I said before, it was baked into the cake early days. Like getting extracting confessions from people in the Cheka. That was done at the end of 1917, they were getting people, or January 1918, they were within like weeks of the Bolsheviks taking power, they were getting people to confess the crimes. And Dzerzhinsky was able to say, yeah, these people confessed, and I don't need any standard of proof because they've confessed. So, okay, so how I've started talking about Felix Dzerzhinsky in this, I don't know. I got a bit carried away. So, okay, next week we'll be plowing on with more Hegel. So, goodbye from the beach. See you later. Oh, look at that view. Look at that. And the sun's come out. What a view. Okay. Peace, man.